going on, YouTube? We're back at it again. More post Guilty Gear thoughts. This time we're talking about the big man, the man with the master plan, Potemkin. Is Potemkin the king of the jungle? Is Potemkin the best character in the game? Is Potemkin just that dude? Could this possibly be the second coming of Guilty Gear Accent Core Vanilla Potemkin? Answers to these questions and more with Kensou at News at 11. Alright, you guys. Alright, let's get serious here for a second here, yeah? So to be honest with you guys, my thoughts on Potemkin is he's definitely really strong. I think he's a really good character. I think that he has a lot of good things going for him in this game. And it's very obvious that, you know, he's pretty much top 5. I think if I wasn't to put him in top 5, it'd probably be, that's kind of hard, it's kind of a tough pill to swallow. He could be seen as maybe underneath that or within the top 10 best characters in the beta. But I think for right now, to play it safe, I think he is pretty much up there. And I want to kind of get into why he's really good and what I think about him in this version. So, as you guys can already tell, I think he's good. But I think the things that make him good are his footsies, right? A lot of people would say, you know, his command grab, you know, he's a grappler, you know, his command grab does so much damage. His command grab, command grab, command grab, command grab, command grab, command grab. It's just so good, dude. It does like, bro, it does like 80%, bro. He does like 2 of them and it's like game over, dog. I feel you. His damage output is pretty high, especially in Strive, since damage in Strive is like probably the highest it's ever been in Guilty Gear history. But I'll be the first to tell you, it really is his footsies and not so much the grapple. And the reason for that is Potemkin's command grab in this version of Guilty Gear doesn't have the range it used to have in previous Guilty Gears. While the damage output is high, it's just the range is not anywhere near as good. So his ability to disrespect block strings with it isn't really gonna be there, I think. And it's primarily because most people are gonna do whatever they can to kind of keep their strings tight against them, especially in this version. But in terms of using it offensively, when he gets in, is more like he'll use it more with his Kara cancel. So if you're not familiar with what Kara canceling is, it's basically canceling out a prior animation with another move, if you will. So in this case, Potemkin's forward and kick, his shoulder tackle, or 6K, if you will, for those of you guys who know number notation, 6K basically allows you to shoulder tackle, and you can cancel the shoulder tackle into the command grab, which inherently extends the range. So he'll slide forward a little bit with it, and then, you know, it basically extends the range. So that's a really good way to sneak in command grab outside of empty jump command grab and other, you know, grappler-esque options that you would tend to go for to try to sneak in those command grabs. But I'd be the first to tell you that I honestly believe it really is his footsies, as I've been saying. His far slash and stand heavy slash, those are really good pokes. His sweeps are really good poke. Like, his single strike pokes, so specifically standing heavy slash, specifically that button does a lot of damage. It does a lot of damage in comparison to like a normal combo, right? So if you're getting hit by that move, especially counter hit, it can go in a slide head. He gets to get in, and then just the whole 9, right? If you're not familiar with slide head, it's the move where he pretty much collapses over, and it's the ground pound or the earthquake that causes you to like get a hard knockdown for him. So because you get that and you get to get in now, it turns into something kind of scary when you're just playing like a counter poking game against him, or he's just trying to just fish for a counter hit. His standing punch is probably one of the most amazing normals he's got, outside of the other buttons I mentioned. And it's primarily because standing punch and just the punch button in general, between jumping, standing, and crouching, they're all really good. They're all really fast. They have great range, great hit boxes, especially crouching punch. And crouching punch times 3 is like such good damage. It's like, sure, it's a 3-hit combo, and it's kind of like a meme combo, if you will, in comparison to what other characters are doing off of jabs. But the damage he's getting off of jabs is pretty high, actually, you guys. And it's something that cannot be ignored, in my honest opinion. Even his stand punch can be used as anti-air, which is kind of random, in addition to his forward punch, which is a great anti-air. Now, his standing punch in older Guilty Gear can anti-air as well, but it's not nearly as good as like this game. Like Potemkin's jab just like hits like so high above him, it's kind of weird. But his entire game is looking really good with forward punch, stand punch. You know, that one's more of a situational anti-air, and his crouching heavy slash, which does like a buttload of damage. And then on top of that, you got the icing on the cake. You have Heavenly Potemkin Buster, which is air unblockable. He's also got air throw. It's like he has so many good options to anti-air you, and like they all lead to pretty solid damage. I know some people are like, you know, who do play Potemkin in previous versions of Guilty Gear kind of see him have Heat Knuckle, and Heat Knuckle doesn't really, you know, air unblockable in this game. Instead, it just forces him kind of back to neutral, but it does leave Potemkin at frame advantage. I think that it was calculated at roughly about 3 frames. If I am wrong, please let me know in the comments below. But he does get some frame advantage, and if he's in the corner, that frame advantage is pretty prevalent, you know. In addition to that, he also has a new move, I believe it's called Garuda. That move is probably one of the most insane moves I've ever seen Potemkin ever get in Guilty Gear history. That move is a gut punch check that deals so much risk gauge, and it does a lot of chip damage. So it's like, if he just so happens to sneak that in there and you're asleep at the wheel, you could die after the next hit, you know, in addition to that chip damage. So it's like everything just kind of adds up with that move if set up correctly. And I mean, even if he doesn't set it up correctly, he has cool combos for it that do massive amounts of damage. It's just kind of nutty to me. He's got so many cool options, and it's, you know, and when I say cool options, like, it's cool that he has these things. It's just some things could be toned down a little bit. Like, I think the risk build on the gut punch could be a little bit lowered. I think the move in itself is fine for what it is. Of course, some would say if you lower the risk build, you know, make the move faster. I think I wouldn't be too against it being a bit faster if they also reduce the chip damage as well. But I mean, this isn't about really nerfing or, you know, buffing Potemkin. I think he's mostly fine, save for a few things. Those few things kind of equate towards Hammerfall being very safe on block. You're forced to instant block this move to reduce the pushback on it so that you can actually punish him. And the move is like, what, -5, I believe it is. And like, instant blocking it, while it's not that hard, it gets, you know, while it's not too difficult from like full screen, like the closer Potemkin gets, it gets a lot harder to react to that move to kind of punish it like that. There are ways to kind of stop it, you know, if you have a, you know, machine gun punchable type jab, you know, basically a rapid fire jab you can kind of mash, or a rapid fire button you can just kind of mash. That is fairly reliable. I would say maybe around 50% ish. I know it doesn't sound reliable in saying 50%, but it's just the fact that like the way his hitbox is, if your character has a good reaching stand punch and you can mash it out, you can stop him from it. Obviously it's not as reliable. You can backdash it, you can block it and try to like take your turn back. But I think the underlying thing here is I'm not the biggest fan of it being safe on block, because I don't know, maybe because it's always been punishable and I'm so used to it. But of course, this is a different game, so things should be different. But I feel like they readjusted it because Hammerfall break is very slow. So essentially, in some ways, I would rather have his Hammerfall break kind of be faster and make Hammerfall more punishable again, like the way it's always been. But even if they don't do that, I'll be okay if it's like safe negative. If he, I mean, -5, he still can't really take his turn back per se. But it's just the pushback in which it leaves him at for some characters, I think, is kind of like detrimental for them, because essentially he's not truly in a bad spot, especially when he has the ability to like backdash away from that situation or just jump, you know, barring your character. Obviously, like I said, it depends on your normals, right? If you can kind of take your turn back with a good normal that can discourage the jump or the backdash, then yeah, sure. But I feel like you're still kind of sort of in a, it's not truly a guessing situation, but like it can turn into something unfavorable providing he has meter. So if he goes for reflector super, that could turn into something kind of crazy. And I understand it's more of a read, but I mean, he's a grapple character, right? Like he does make, you know, he can win off of making reads. So if you decide to like try to take your turn back and he's like, you know, reflector, and you get, you know, you get hit by it, you can essentially get stunned and just lose the game. So kind of something to take note of there. But yeah, I think Hammerfall is kind of too good right now. In addition to that, I think Mega Fist is probably just as good and just as silly. I'll also throw in there, I forgot that there is a punish you can do on reaction to Hammerfall, which is throw. It is a very risky punish, but no, that is something that you can do. There are other ways, but like I said before, I'm not the biggest fan of trying to throw that. But moving on back to Mega Fist, right? Mega Fist, that move is actually insane. The reason why I say this move is insane is because of the hitbox for this move. So the hitbox to hurtbox ratio for Potemkin is actually more so in the favor of the hitbox than his actual hurtbox, right? So what does this entail, right? It means that trying to use reversals to stop this move could result into trades or clashing situations, right? I'll give you 3 scenarios regarding like using reversals, specifically uppercuts, right? So Shoryukens, right? Soul, Kai, and Chip, from all those characters in which I tested, including Leo to some extent, like, you can beat out Hammer Fist on reaction. It is very difficult, but on reaction, what ends up happening is there's 2 things that happen. And I'll talk about a preemptive strike first. If you preemptive strike and buffer it, you will definitely beat him out before he's able to get his fist out and they go super active, right? If you do it like on reaction, like right on reaction, if you will, then sometimes it'll trade, and it's not a good trade. It's not really in your favor. Mega Fist damage is really high, and I would definitely encourage you guys to be careful with that when you do play it, provided they don't change it. The third scenario here is if you do it late. Now, if you do it late, doing it late is actually the best case scenario from what I tested, and the reason for that is you can force a clash situation. In older Guilty Gear and in, you know, Xrd, for example, clashing is definitely a thing, but it's not as prevalent, right? In this situation, you know, with those characters, you can actually force the clash intentionally. So, for example, I did this a lot with Chip, right? So what you can do is you can actually uppercut, clash, and then preemptively buffer a crouching heavy slash to try to beat him out. Now, this doesn't mean that the Potemkin player can't react and do something about it either. Like, they can block, of course, but note that that is a thing that you can do. So learn to use your clash frames to try to stop it. That's the thing that I think that's kind of difficult in this beta, was trying to deal with Mega Fist in addition to like Potemkin's jumps, you know, because his jump normals are really good, specifically jumping heavy, jumping dust, and jumping slash. Like, all 3 of those normals are really good, right? So when you have to deal with the Mega Fist, which is essentially a short jump with an attack, like, it's not that it's not reactable, it's just when you react, like, sometimes it's not in your favor. So there are safe options you can get around it, which obviously are things such as like faultless IB to force him back to neutral. You can IB it and try to throw him if you're close enough. You can try to take your turn back after the IB, after general IBing, since there's no pushback. Like, you do have options. You can try to backdash, jump away from it, you know, but that's the thing that's tricky, you know, since he can carry cancel command grab, that also means he can carry cancel Mega Fist. So he gets extended range on this move, so it does make it hard to react to in neutral. In block strings, maybe not so much, but just in neutral, if he's just trying to work his way in, and just so happens to carry cancel that from 6k, like, that dude's traveling pretty far to like duff you, you know. So it is difficult. There are ways to stop it, but as I said before, that's one of the reasons why I think Potemkin was also really good this beta. Yeah, just as I mentioned before, his entire game super good with Heavenly Potemkin Buster. I feel like deserves its own talk here, right? That move has a very big box where you get grabbed. Like, the box extends even farther, like, behind him. And I've actually tested and have had scenarios where I've actually crossed up Potemkin's chip and still got snatched up despite being behind him. So that move is insane, and it does insane amounts of damage. And yeah, it's pretty scary what you can do with that move. Like, that move definitely leads to some situations, from what I have seen on Twitter, where people have come up with situations where, you know, you can get air reset by that move. And he's always had the air resets with Heavenly, even in the older games, but it's just now it's very dangerous because of how much damage he gets off of it. Of course, back in the day, it did do a lot of damage too, but like, this is like game ending. Like, this isn't just a, oh, I took like 30 or 40, you know, all right, whatever. This is like, no, you can lose the game off of this, you know. Like, Potemkin can essentially like 2 to 3 touch you pretty quickly, you know. I'm sure you guys have seen clips of people getting Potemkin busted like twice and it's game over. Or they get hit by 1 pop buster and then 1 heavily and then it's like game. Obviously, it depends on if you're playing a, you know, low HP character or not, but essentially it's still there. Like, you can die really fast, like, not being careful against Potemkin, essentially. All in all, I guess kind of to wrap this up and summarize, he's a good character in this current beta. I do think that as the game goes on and more characters get introduced, he might get pushed down a bit. But the thing about him is he's still he's still Potemkin, right? He can still vibe check any character, and he still has the ability to outplay things. So even though he may have some certain bad matchups, like say Axel, for example, it's still not something that cannot be outplayed. And that's a good thing about Guilty Gear. You always, the outplay factor is there. Yeah, man, he just has everything. I don't see anything bad about him at all. Supers are good, normals are good, anti-air game is good, damage is good, grab potential is good. Like he's just so well rounded. It's really hard to say anything bad about him. And I think it's also because Xrd Potemkin was definitely struggling, so they wanted to give him a bone this game. I'll be the first to tell you, even as a chip player, I don't mind the matchup. I don't mind that he's good. I just would like to see certain adjustments, specifically towards Hammerfall and Mega Fist in particular. Of course, I would like to see some damage nerfs for Potemkin Buster as well, and maybe save like the bulk of that damage for Heavenly Potemkin Buster, since it is a super. But even if that doesn't happen in terms of reducing the damage, I wouldn't really have a problem with it, because essentially it's like my fault, or it's our fault for getting hit by it, right? We have to do our best to not get hit by those things and try to still smother Potemkin, because he still does die to getting smothered, right? But yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. I think like I said, I do think he's good, and I think he's going to be a great pickup. I think he'll still be a prominent pick even after release. We'll just see how things pan out as more characters get introduced into the game, and see where it goes in terms of matchups, because right now it's looking good. Down the line, it could be down the line could be a different story, But yeah, let me go on ahead and get up out of here. But before I do not forget, you guys, gotta put it out here. A lot of you guys watching the videos are not actually subscribed to the channel, so of course I'm going to encourage you guys to do so. And don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with anything and everything I got going on here on this channel. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys out. Do your thing. Hopefully y'all have a good day, and don't forget to play more Guilty Gear. I don't care if you're playing Guilty Gear Asuka. I don't care if you're playing Dust Strikers. I don't care if you're playing Judgment on the PSP. Play more Guilty Gear, alright?